Ate a bunch of chicken fingers earlier, so I'm like super miserable right now. Okay, so another review for you all. Witcher Season 2, Episode 4, Redanian Intelligence. Had the chance to watch this episode. Yeah, once again, definitely really liking this season so far. Seems like it just kind of keeps improving with each episode that I watch, and this one definitely, I would say right now, probably the third episode of the season is probably my favorite, but this one I would definitely consider a pretty close second. Mainly just because we got the introduction of one of my favorite characters from the second season. The musician Dandelion makes a return in this episode, so that was definitely cool to see him again and kind of see the role that he plays in it. So yeah, kind of a quick plot summary for this episode. So we get to see more of Ciri and her training with Geralt at Kaer Morhen. We see him kind of showing her how to hunt. At least in the beginning, it looks like they're kind of out in the wilderness, kind of doing a little bit of a hunting round. And then Triss actually shows up and meets up with them and goes back with Geralt and Ciri to Kaer Morhen and hangs out with him and the rest of the Witchers. So it's kind of cool in this episode. We kind of get to see Ciri has developed more of a kind of a sister-brother bond with like the other Witchers like Lambert and the others, so that's kind of cool to see. It's nice to see that they've warmed up to her a little bit and that they are, they're kind of. It seems like they're kind of taking more of an interest in her well-being. So that was a cool little moment, I think, in the episode. And then of course we get to kind of see like the past kind of come up with Geralt and Triss, and there's a couple moments between those two that we kind of get to see in this episode as well. And then Triss is helping Geralt and Vesemir in their investigation of Eskel from earlier in the season. So it's interesting to see her character in Kaer Morhen as well, and kind of see her relationship with Ciri too, being the only other girl in the entire that entire area. So it's kind of it's interesting to see that dynamic between her and Ciri that's going on. And then of course we get to see more of the what's going on with Yennefer and the Nilfgaardian soldier she's with. I looked up his name earlier. I'm going to look it up again real quick. I forget his name every single time I look it up. What is it? It is Keir? Not sure if that's how you pronounce that. But yeah, we get to see more of their dilemma unfolding as those two are basically trying to lay low because now they're wanted. And so like there's like wanted posters for them all over the place. And so in the city that they're in, they're basically making their escape through the sewers, and they meet two people, an elf and another person, or two elves, I believe. And one of them was deaf and actually has like a crush on Ciri. And so like there's a crazy scene in the sewers where like this was kind of a huge surprise to me, where the guy that actually likes Ciri, the deaf guy, actually gets eaten by like a sewer creature. So that was actually a pretty genuinely sad moment because you actually liked his character. He was pretty cool and seemed like he was really gonna, it seemed like he was gonna be with him for quite a while. So that was actually kind of a surprise to me. And then of course his cowardly friend that's with him, he actually survives at least till the end of the episode. So. But there's an interesting twist with that guy's character, with the coward, Bale, I think is his name. Yeah, we get to see an interesting twist with him at the end of the episode, which I thought was very interesting, that I definitely didn't see coming. But, of course, I mentioned it before, Dandelion makes his triumphant return in this episode. And I feel like I knew it was him immediately as soon as I heard him singing, because basically where Yennefer and Kaer are at, they are trying to get in touch with this guy called the Sandpiper that's going to help the elves get out of the city, because the elves are basically being persecuted and in many cases beaten and tortured to death. So they're trying to. So Yennefer and the guy, the Nilfgaard soldier Kaer, are trying to escape by reaching this guy, the Sandpiper, who's going to help them escape from the city on a ship. And so, like to Citra, I believe. And so they're hiding out underneath a bar or a tavern, and then you hear singing up there, and of course the voice just instantly recognize it's Dandelion. So, which again, another character I had forgotten about him. I remember him from the first season, and I really loved his dynamic with Geralt. And you're going to hear me mention the Witcher 3 video game a lot when I review this season, but seeing him in that game, it's just a weird deja vu now, seeing him in the show. Like, that's one thing that I kind of keep doing. I keep going back to the Witcher 3 game, and I keep comparing characters from the game to how they look in the show. And it's just like, I mean, for the most part, I think they look a lot like their video game counterparts. A few variations here and there, with the exception of Geralt himself. He looks pretty much exactly like how he did in the game. But Dandelion definitely looks different, but not in a bad way. Just something I've noted about it. But yeah, seeing him come back, I think that was great. He's a great character from the first one, great comedic timing on the actor's part. Yeah, it was awesome to see him again, to make his triumphant return. And we kind of get to see, just based on the songs that he sings, that, like, you know, the impact that Geralt has clearly had on him, even though he tries to argue to the contrary, which, again, just kind of adds to how great his character is. He's just such a... He is such a... like a spiteful character, and I love that about him. It cracks me up. Yeah, I love the actor that plays him. He's great. Joey Beatty. Yeah, he's fantastic. I think he might be my favorite character in the show, right next to Geralt. Yeah, those two are just, I love those two. Also, a surprising character, I think I remember hearing that he was going to be in this season, but I completely forgot about it, was Graham Mctavish, who is in this episode as Jitskra. I'm probably butchering that name, but yeah, seeing him in there as sort of like a advisor, like a very unhinged advisor, was very interesting. I'm definitely curious to kind of see what role he's going to play in this season. It seems like he's definitely got a very big antagonistic role going on. We get to see him kind of having a bit of a interesting conversation with himself later on in the episode, which was definitely cool to watch. It was definitely interesting to watch, I guess I'll say that much. And kind of a side note about, Graham McTavish is that he was the voice for Dracula in the Netflix series Castlevania. And so I recognized his voice too. I mean, it's not a super distinguished voice, but when you listen to him voice Dracula, it's one of those voices that I feel like just kind of sticks with you, or at least it stuck with me. And hearing him in this and seeing him in this was really cool. So I hope we get to see more of him in this season. He seems like he's just having fun with it and just eating up the scene, every scene that he's in, even though I think he's only in like 2 or 3. But yeah, he definitely has some pretty heavy presence to him. So yeah, and then also we get to learn more about Ciri, and that it seems like they're hinting at the fact that she's far more powerful than Geralt originally gave her credit for. She starts talking about the monolith and how she's having visions about it, and how she believes that she is the one that actually broke it or caused it to topple. And now Geralt is trying to figure out how that happened and what he can do to assist in that. And then there's also a pretty big twist in the end where Triss and Vesemir figure out that Ciri actually has elder blood, which was believed to be wiped off the face of the continent, centuries ago or thousands of years ago. But Vesemir finds, droplets of it all over the place in this special flower that only blooms when elder blood touches the ground. And he notes that it's only growing, that flower is only growing in places where she got her ass kicked, quote unquote. So seems like that's pretty cut and dry, that she's definitely of elder blood. So yeah, we're learning a lot more about Ciri and kind of the interesting power that she appears to have. And so I'm definitely curious to see how that's going to play out in the rest of the season. A couple of honorable mentions as far as like performances go. I feel like I didn't do that in the last few episodes. The actress that plays Ciri, Freya Allen, yeah, she's been really good, I think, every episode that she's been in, but I think especially like this season, like the last couple episodes, I think she's really knocked it out of the park, I think, with a lot of her scenes that she's in. For example, there's a scene where she's talking to Geralt and Triss, and when she tells Geralt about the fact that she thinks she's the one that toppled the monolith, and you can really just see the pain on her face, and you can see the turmoil that her character is going through. And I think that's just a testament to the actress, to Freya's acting skills, and I think she definitely feels like she owns this character. I feel like she's quickly becoming to this character what Henry Cavill is to Geralt. I feel like less and less am I seeing Freya Allen, and more I'm seeing Ciri. So, kudos to her for sure. Again, Joey Beatty, Dandelion, great. Graham McTavish, awesome. Also, the guy that plays Kair, the Nilfgaardian soldier with Yennefer, uh, Eamon Farron. Yeah, I'm really liking his character too. He's kind of an interesting individual, but like it's just kind of funny to me. Like he's. I mean, I don't mean this in a bad way. He's kind of an interesting looking person. Definitely kind of different looking, but like I think he's kind of growing on me as a character. Like he's definitely interesting. Like I said before, in the previous episode when Tisea was like drilling into his head, like I honestly thought that she was killing him. So I was kind of genuinely surprised that he came back later. But I mean, I was glad that he was. So yeah, and it seems like this episode is definitely setting up for a bigger conflict that's coming. I'm sure that's going to be coming up later on this season. Of course, we keep getting hints, like little tiny hints about the Wild Hunt, which, for those of you who haven't played the Witcher series, and again, I've only played the third one, so I can't speak to the first two. But the Wild Hunt is basically they're like the main protagonists or main antagonists of the Wild Hunt game, Witcher 3, and they're basically just kind of like these supernatural like knights that you have to fight throughout the game, and I think they're almost kind of like Grim Reapers in a way, if I remember correctly. In a lot of ways, they kind of remind me of Skull Knight from the Berserk series, but like a bunch of them essentially. I think from where I got in the first Witcher game, or in The Witcher 3, I think I fought one or two of them. I remember one of them was like really kind of annoying to beat. So, but yeah, we kind of get the episode kind of keeps alluding to them. I feel like there's been little tiny hints of the Wild Hunt being dropped throughout this season, so there's some interesting world building going on. But I totally dig it about this season. It feels like it's definitely building up to a bigger conflict, and it almost kind of feels like The Witcher, at least the second season so far. I'd have to go back and watch the first season again. In fact, I probably will at some point, just to kind of watch both back to back. But it definitely feels like season 2 is trying to build up to a much bigger conflict that's going on. And whether that's with the Wild Hunt or another villain, that remains to be seen. I mean, I'm guessing the Wild Hunt, if they do show up, probably won't be for several seasons down the road. I'm not sure if season 3 has already been announced yet. I mean, I feel like season 2 has already been a success, so I guess we'll have to wait and see on that. But let me drink real quick. I'm still getting used to talking on this podcast. My voice gets so dry. It's like doing an interview where you have to talk for so long. But I don't mind, though. But yeah, it's I'm definitely excited to see like where this is going to go, though. And I feel like, I mean, most shows are like this now, but I definitely feel like I'm going to make a prediction now that this is probably going to end on a fairly big cliffhanger. It's not really much of a prediction. I think every show kind of does that, but hopefully we'll kind of get maybe more information about the Wild Hunt, maybe more of a indication that they're going to be showing up down the road. But if I had to guess, because they're kind of like the big baddies of this universe, so I would imagine if they do show up, it's probably not going to be for quite a while down the road. But it still is going to be interesting to see what role they play and kind of how much more we get to hear of them in this season, and if we learn anything about them. It seems like right now Ciri is the main focus of season 2, so I'm guessing that there's probably going to be some big revelation later in this season about Ciri, and probably it's going to have a huge impact on her current relationship with Geralt, and it's kind of going to put that to the test. So we'll have to see how that plays out. But again, I'm really liking the dynamic there between Geralt and Ciri. I like the relationship that kind of seems to be developing with Yennefer and Kair, and not like, I don't mean like in a romantic way. I just mean like just an interesting dynamic between these two characters. Like her saving him was definitely kind of a surprise in the previous episode. I honestly kind of thought Yennefer was going to kill him for a split second and kind of go down this dark path, but to be honest, like I'm kind of digging this new path that she's going down with him. It's definitely interesting to see, for sure. Also, I liked her reunion with Dandelion. That was funny when they were in the tavern and he turns around and she gives him a hug and just completely catches him off guard. That dude just freaking kills me. I feel like every scene he's in, he's just totally cutting it up. Yeah, also, another honorable mention, like, I love the little back and forth he has when he's trying to sneak them onto the ship, and he's talking to the guy who's basically checking people's papers before they can get on. And it's just so funny, because the guy comes off as, like, this big, beefy musclehead, and then it turns out he actually is, like, he mentions that his niece is a fan of Dandelion's music, and he actually starts kind of, like, critiquing some of Dandelion's songs, and it's just funny to me. Like, and I love this, I love the absolute just, how pissed off Dandelion gets at that. Like, just the fact that this guy who, clearly is not a musician and doesn't really know anything about music, like, he would have the nerve to even dare to speak ill of his singing, which is it just cracks me up. Like he just starts talking about the lyrics and how he's like, oh, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. It kind of feels like there's two different timelines going on. It's just like, and you can just see the rage building in Dandelion's face, and it's just so funny. That scene, I think, was one of the best scenes in the episode for sure. I definitely loved that a lot. And then, of course, the episode ends on a cliffhanger. Dandelion has a fairly emotional farewell with Yennefer, and the two actually share a fairly heartfelt moment before he finally departs the ship and leaves her below deck to get away. And then we hear him kind of scream off camera, indicating that clearly something has happened. Yennefer goes up to investigate and finds that his instrument has been left damaged without him to be anywhere to be seen. So obviously something has happened. If I had to guess, I would say like he probably got caught by the guy that I would assume is still guarding the ship. I kind of kept thinking that. I was like, isn't that guy still around? Like, you just walked right back out onto the deck, and this guy was literally standing right outside the ship when he was talking to you about your music, dude. It's like, are you serious? Oh yeah, and also the other heartfelt moment of the episode, and I mentioned this before, was the character Bale, the guy that Yennefer and Kara meet in the sewer. He comes off as a coward in the beginning because he abandons his friend to be eaten by the sewer monster. But he actually ends up saving Yennefer and the others, because when they're trying to sneak past the boatman, the guy guarding the boat, and this is that same scene when Dandelion's getting into an argument with that guy. Dandelion's basically about to ruin everything. Like, all he had to do was keep his mouth shut, and, he could get everybody on board, but he gets into a confrontation with this guy, and everything's about to go downhill, and then suddenly, the coward from the sewer actually steps out, and says, fuck the North, and then basically gets beaten to death. And it's actually a genuinely powerful moment. I was not expecting to feel as bad for his character as I did. Granted, he wasn't a big character, and, it's obviously not supposed to be like this huge, character death or anything like that, but I was actually quite surprised at how genuinely moving it was. It was a kind of a cool bit of character development for him. I'm kind of glad that they were able to sneak that into such a short amount of time. So, yeah, I give props to the writers for that much. As far as like if it made sense for his character, probably not. He doesn't really know Yennefer or care very much, so it's like his motivation for helping them seems, pretty weak, to say the least. But still, I mean, it's a cool little scene, I think. Because there's a moment before that where, Yennefer kind of confronts him and, about him abandoning his friend to die, telling him that he's not worth it. And I guess this could kind of be his moment, and him kind of showing that her words really kind of struck a chord with him. But I don't know, I like character arcs like that. So for me, I thought it was really cool. But yeah, this was definitely a good episode. A lot of good things, a lot of great things going on. And of course the reintroduction of Dandelion's character was always great. Hopefully we'll get to see more of him this season. I mean, it seems obvious that he's at least going to be in the next episode. So I'm definitely glad to see that. So yeah, if I had to give a score to this episode, I'd probably say like an 8.9, maybe a 9 out of 10. Like, this was definitely a good episode. Really solid, great writing, great acting all around. It seems like all the characters are it seems like they're just getting better and better with each episode as far as like coming into their roles and like, and just really owning them. And I'm really digging that a lot. So yeah, loving this season. Definitely really enjoying this season quite a bit. I'll definitely have to go back and watch season 1 again, along with this one back to back, because I feel like there's a lot of things that I'm kind of missing out on or I've forgotten about just because it's been so long, because I think it's been like at least a year or two since I watched the first season. So I'll have to do that again. But yeah. All right, guys, that concludes this episode. So I'll try to get the 5th episode review up sometime in the next week or so. So I'll catch you guys next time. Take it easy.